Indigenous Rights Radio, because knowledge is power.
The 2025 United Nations Climate Change Conference, commonly referred to as COP30, is taking place from November 10 to November 21, 2025 in Belém, Brazil. The city is often referred to as the gateway to the Amazon rainforests. As usual, the annual meeting of the parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFIII, this global event has drawn a vast and diverse attendance. Participants include government representatives from 198 member countries, as well as delegates from UN bodies, civil society organizations, academia, and private sectors. Particularly notable presence is a large delegation representing indigenous peoples, women, and youth. This year's gathering is historic, as it has seen the largest participation of indigenous peoples in the conference series history, with more than 3,000 indigenous delegates officially registered. Cultural Survival has been speaking with indigenous leaders and their representatives to understand their priorities and demands for COP30.
My name is Aluki. I'm the chair of the United Nations Permanent Forum of Indigenous Issues. I'm here at COP30 in Belém, Brazil. I traveled from Iqaluit, Nunavut, which is in the Canadian Arctic in the eastern part of Canada. So I actually traveled 5 countries, I believe, because it was such a long route. But I know so many people have made those long treks to be here today, all for the next 2 weeks. And I will say that when I arrived, I went to the Indigenous Peoples Caucus, and I was so impressed because my understanding is that this is the most Indigenous peoples that have been participating in the Indigenous Peoples Caucus. And I think that's really important. Also, today, I know that there's a global summit of Indigenous women that's taking place. And so I think there's a great celebration for Indigenous peoples, can be very proud for their participation in COP30. Although we're not in the room negotiating, we're able to influence the important issues that affect our communities and our peoples. So one of the things that people keep talking about in terms of COP30 is that it's an implementation COP. But to be able to achieve that, and I think Indigenous peoples have been able to voice all the things that they need. Some of it includes direct access to funding. It includes support so that we can do adaptation plans and mitigation. But I think at the foundation of all this is that Indigenous peoples need to be participating fully and effectively. And it's all about Indigenous people's self-determination. So one of the things that has been brought up to me continuously through the forum is the conflation of Indigenous peoples and local communities. And I know there's lots of discussion about that at the caucus and different facilitated working groups, but it's also in all the different international milieus. For instance, when I was in Panama with the Convention on Biodiversity, people were talking about it, and many of you will recall that there's the joint statement from the 3 mechanisms from the Indigenous peoples, the Special Rapporteur on Indigenous Peoples, MRIP, as well as a permanent forum that talks about how we need to stop conflating Indigenous peoples with other groups. Indigenous peoples, I guess the main message is continue to show up. It's with our input and our participation that we will be able to achieve all the targets that have been put out there to ensure that we're able to continue to live on this globe.
For more information on the rights of Indigenous peoples, visit cs.org and follow Cultural Survival on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Threads, and Blue Sky.